Lord, and welcome to another episode of Nerd Herder. I am John Wayne, aka J-Dub.
I'm Boop.
Yes, no other name be needed for the mighty Boop.
Well, you see,
Um,
dear, I went into the forest and I found a fairy, and I told them my full name, and now it's gone. They own
right?
it
You just
now.
didn't run into a stranger on the road, and they were like, Boop. That is your name now.
It was actually Nick Milky from Podcast of the Wills.
There you go. Welcome to another episode of the Nerd Herder main show, where we talk about Star Wars, our main love in life, hence the
Yeah.
main show. And we took a couple episodes to chat about some other things we enjoy over on our Nerdiverse series, but we're back to our first love for one of our favorite little side quest series.
The sea.
We don't have too many things we plan. We talked about this before of there's not too many things where it's just like a lot of planning and intent behind it. We just do episodes about things we enjoyed talking about, right? That's
Yeah.
podcasting. But every now and then we have things where we're just like, we're going to put a little bit more effort into this. And by that, I mean we're going to take it from 1 to 3. And that would be our 10 Ways to Die series.
Quite possibly one of our most fun series.
Yeah, and I realize that every time, because we kind of take about a couple months or so between these, just to kind of can keep. I mean, there's plenty of planets in Star Wars. Don't get us wrong, but there's only so many you can die on, and those are the only ones we want to talk about. So, in an effort to keep content, we don't talk about it often. We don't do these terribly often.
Mhm.
But by the time we do another one, every time we've grown and gained some friends and followers.
Yeah.
And so, welcome, first of all. If you are not familiar, this is a series where we take a planet in Star Wars and we talk about the various ways you can die. It's informational and frightening.
This is the Nerd Herder Tourism Department, kids.
Yeah.
Strap in. We're going
And
on a
so,
trip.
if you were thinking of making this planet-sized termite colony your next vacation destination, or just if you were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and thought maybe this would be a good place to live, first of all, you'd be wrong. But before you make any plans to relocate yourself, you should know particularly all the ways you can die
Yeah.
on this planet, this bug world, if you will. And part of the way that we're going to do that is by, I mean, it would be easy, yeah, to just say the list, sure, but
Yeah.
it's about the pizzazz. It's about the
It's about the gumption.
conversation.
Come on, guys.
The ways we die are the friends we made along the way. And
I know
um,
at least half of my friends could kill me. That's why I'm friends with them.
in general, most people in a room could kill me, and I thank them that they don't. And hence why I'm thankful I'm not on Geonosis, because they would not show such
No.
restraint. And so,
Great planet for kissing, apparently.
apparently for
Happens
romance.
a couple times.
What are your thoughts overall on Geonosis before we dive into some history and some trivia and some fun facts and death facts about
Ooh,
this planet?
those are fun facts. Well, I am incredibly interested in the concept of Geonosis in general. It's a termite colony, but it's also a refinery, but it's also, a hive.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Geonosians
It's an onion.
themselves. It's an onion. It is an onion filled with locusts, which is the best kind of onion in my
It's
opinion.
so Old Testament. I love it.
Right? Yeah, the Geonosians themselves are very interesting. They are based on mosquitoes and locusts and bugs in general. I think that the design is very cool. It's the first place we kind of see the meeting of the separatist
Mm-hmm.
get introduced to Techno Union, which is the coolest name for a separatist army.
Yeah. And boy band,
And
apparently.
boy band. Yeah, my all bass Russian hard bass band is called Techno Union.
There you go.
Yeah, it's me and Pete Fletzer and Nick Milky and Jackson and everybody else I know who
And
also plays
I'm
bass.
your number one roadie.
Thanks, babe.
So yeah, and what I love is that this isn't just like a straight and forward another desert planet. It does differentiate itself a lot from the likes of like Tatooine and such. And that's one thing I'll give it. I understand the gripe of they're fairly similar,
Yeah.
but I will say the ecosystem definitely stands out from Tatooine, and similarly Utapau. Although most of what we see of Utapau is the like sinkholes of it, a lot of it is also rocks and desert too.
Mhm.
Um,
It's a dry heat.
but much like, what's the difference between visiting Texas and Arizona? I mean, they'll both kill you. They
For
all
different
have their
reasons.
certain appeal, right?
Yeah.
Texas has Whataburger, Arizona has something, I'm
Hostile
sure.
winds.
And so Geonosis similarly stands out, I think. I don't think it's just fair to be like, oh, another desert planet. Geonosis is pretty dang cool for sure.
It is.
And it turns out that Geonosis has a lot to benefit from the more popular planetary desert of Tatooine. We can thank the colonization of Tatooine for Geonosis being introduced to the Republic at all. Basically, they were neighbors, and when Tatooine became popular, the Republic showed up, and then they were also like, hey, there's another planet we can colonize.
Yeah, as governments tend to do.
Yeah. Um, what do you think? I mean, you mentioned droid factories. What do you think of droid building bugs? Because when the Republic showed up, their interest was piqued because they were like, "Hey, these bugs can be useful," and
Hmm.
obviously they went on to supply the droids of the Separatist army. So,
Yeah.
is that a far-fetched idea for you, or does that kind of work, or do you care?
Well, here's the thing. Drone insects are incredibly intelligent. Uh, the hive would not survive without them. Dropping some entomology, ent,
Entomology?
entom-
Entomology?
no, entomology facts on you. The drones are the most important part of the hive.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
I
I've seen aliens.
exactly. You need drones to help for the queen, which I am sure we will get into at some point.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, when you take into account that they're good with the tools and
Yeah.
trades they have as insects in real life, it's not far fetched to say that we're in a galaxy where technology abounds. Like literally, the boondocks of Tatooine still has like they still have a speeder
Yeah.
at the Lars homestead. So it's kind of like, I mean, you still got something.
Yeah.
So it's fair to say the droids would, or the Geonosians would also have something, and I guess
Yeah.
they're very resourceful,
It's like how my cousin who lives in a hollowed out tree in Kentucky has a laptop.
right? Like
Yeah.
everybody has a laptop.
Everybody.
Well, I mean that's not fair to say, but you know what I mean. Like it's just one of those things where it's like in Star Wars, everybody kind of has access to technology. It's just how rinky dink or high tech it is.
Yeah.
And I could see over time, while it started simple, I mean, to be fair, it's not like battle droids are the most sophisticated droids. We've seen far better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as far as a very simple and repetitive construction, yeah, it's possible. And
Yeah.
so,
And speaking of battle droids, I do love how the design of the battle droids is based on the Geonosians.
yeah,
That is
absolutely.
really cool.
It's a cool tidbit. So it's actually droid building that leads to our first little tidbit, our first way to die, and that'd be corporate war. Not something
Yeah.
expected to put on a list when discussing Geonosis, but while Tatooine brought the Republic to Geonosis and it helped them begin their business, eventually Tatooine was tapped dry. We actually talked about that when we did a 10 Ways to Die episode on Tatooine, where the Tatooine we see is largely due to colonization and just basically people
Yeah.
moving in and taking any value out of once what was a possibly beautiful planet.
Maybe.
So when it was tapped dry and the traffic moved elsewhere, it took the Geonosians' customers with them. And the solution was to go to the customers, of course. If you can't get them to you, go to them. But many Geonosians disagreed, and so wars broke out for dominance and resources for thousands of years. So basically, the majority of history up until about 100 years before the Phantom Menace was just spent with Geonosians fighting amongst themselves,
Yeah.
apparently.
That seems, accurate.
Yeah. And so, obviously, millions died in those civil wars and those corporate wars and such. But eventually, um, a peace was made when the Republic reached out again. But not only the Republic, but other more shady folks that would actually enjoy the thought of, hey, we can get our supplies from someone who's not so close to the Republic. Nobody's paying attention to Geonosis. Who's going to know if they build all of these droids for us and
Yeah.
everything?
you get away with a lot when someone's, turned off to the side in Star Wars. Like, you can put up a blockade, you can
Yeah,
make a clone army, you can make a droid army. Like, there wasn't a lot of paying attention going on, or the right people weren't paying
and
attention.
right, and a lot happened because of it, like the Geonosian Civil Wars. Um, and and while that was the cause of a lot of local death, I mean, I'm sure if you got swept up into it, if you decided to visit at the wrong time, you too would end up, you know, keeled
Dead.
over
Yeah.
in the desert. And what a way to go at the hands of termites and such. But um, yeah, it would be a long time after that was settled and after they finally started to get some business again, thanks to the Shady Trade Federation and more,
Thanks, Shady Trade Federation.
right?
Thanks, Techno Union.
They it was really the business that brought peace to Geonosis in a way. Although they were doing bad business, it still put an end to the civil wars. They now had a job to do,
Mhm.
but they still had things to worry about that could kill them and potentially you if you visited this red planet.
Hey, man, sometimes it be like that when you ain't got no union.
Right. So apparently, the Geonosians did not live in caverns and catacombs for just cause.
Mhm.
Um, it wasn't for aesthetics and mood lighting and whatnot. It was because they had to avoid the occasional orbital bombardment from low hanging asteroids. A lot of people miss the really good shot of Geonosis that shows it actually does have a ring.
Mm.
It has a ring of asteroids around it, and apparently just different seasons, kind of like low tide, high tide,
Mhm.
but with gravity. Um, there are times when asteroids just decide, I don't want to be here anymore, and throw themselves at the planet.
Yeah, and also I'd like to point out that Orbital Bombardment is Techno Union's first album.
Absolutely, I hear it slaps. Yeah, so
Hey,
right,
I just
people
got that.
people tend to forget that it has such a ring and whatnot. But on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it to not get squished by space rocks when on vacation?
You know what? I don't know. It depends on how good the vacation is doing. Like, if your family's fighting, I'd put that as a solid 3. Other if you've ever been on a vacation that's uncomfortable like that,
Right.
you might,
What a way to escape.
yeah, you might just want Deep Impact to happen.
Yeah, you accept death
I don't want
as
to
a
miss a
friend at
thing.
that point.
Yeah.
Uh,
But if it's a good beach vacation, which I don't think there are any beaches.
right. I mean, this would be this would be an equivalent to worrying about like wildfires or
Yeah,
earthquakes
that's why
or
we don't go to
tornadoes.
California.
Like it would just be California, California, near.
Why are you making fun of me on the podcast? That's my job.
Oh, um, yeah, it's living in a place where it's just naturally susceptible to certain disasters, and apparently for them, one of the major and leading natural disasters is just asteroids, which I guess
Yeah.
isn't fairly natural because it's from outside of orbit.
Well, I mean, they're
Is it
naturally
natural if
occurring.
it? I was going to say, is it natural because it happens, or is it natural because it's from nature?
I'd say it's natural because it happens naturally without
Like if you had an
outside
asteroid
influence.
season.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So
which I
we
do.
make sure to check the calendar and don't visit Geonosis during asteroid season. Apparently, so it's funny you mentioned beaches and water because this is a natural disaster too for because asteroids aren't the only planetary danger.
No.
Our eighth way to die, number 8 on the list, is water.
What?
Yeah. Not so fun trivia time. Brr, 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 brr. What percentage of Geonosis' surface is water?
I'm gonna say 2%.
Not bad. Okay, so the answer is 5%.
Wow, I was 3% off.
So while the naturally occurring water of the planet isn't the thing to worry about, flash floods apparently are. Um,
Excuse me.
I couldn't find. I mean, obviously these are referenced from like nerd books and
Listen, man, this
such.
is faking in space.
Right. But I couldn't find anything that actually said why this was ever a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like where the water came from, etc., whatever. But I do imagine it's like the scene in Bug's Life when it just starts pouring and like all the sound disappears and it sounds like asteroids falling.
Yeah.
And obviously it's the reference to bugs because I think that's the biggest thing is maybe the flash floods aren't like Noah's Ark level,
No,
but
maybe it's like that scene in Robin Hood Men in Tights when Little John gets caught in the river and he can stand up
maybe
in.
I don't have a point of reference for that. But um, it's just not on my Disney list. Uh,
It's not a Disney movie; it's a Mel Brooks
but
movie.
for what? Oh, Men in Tights. I thought you meant
Yeah,
the Fox one. Sorry, I'm not a furry.
you mean the
Um,
hot one?
sure, whatever. Sorry, no, wrong Robin Hood. I mean,
Wrong,
there's
very
so
wrong,
so
Robin.
dang many of them. Uh, anyway, but yeah, to bugs who would be, I guess, more uh, fearful of water. I
Hmm.
mean, there's many a bug that if you get them wet, they will die. They can't fly anymore. They can't fend for themselves. Like, I imagine that's only escalated in 5'7" form. So that's the average height of a Geonosian, by the way, 5'7".
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Most of them can take you. So,
I
um,
mean, that's not hard.
yeah. So
I'm 5'3". A small child could pick me up.
right, and so I have to mention that at any given point, water is a problem because either there's not enough water or too much water
Yeah.
on Geonosis. I'm sure the I keep want to say droids. The Geonosians have a way of finding or creating water. I don't know how much water a human-sized bug would need, but for us who are 80% water, it might be a problem to visit Geonosis for sure. So either you'll die of dehydration or from the sudden flooding, apparently.
Hmm.
So yeah, water's a problem. What are we gonna do about
What
it?
are we gonna do about it?
Right. So that leads us to the bugs themselves,
Yes.
the big boys on campus, and the ones with whom the planet's named, or they're named after the planet, I guess.
I think they're named after the
What
planet.
comes first, the planet or the people?
I'd say I don't
It's
know.
philosophical. Yeah. So as I mentioned, they're not terribly intimidating at 5'7", and they're fairly scrawny. But you'd be hard pressed to only encounter one Geonosian. How many times in media have we seen just one Geonosian?
That the meeting with Boggle the Lesser.
That's fair. I mean, okay. So I'll
You're
give you that one.
welcome.
Well, I mean, I knew of one, but I didn't think of that. And that's a good point. Shout out to our boy Poggle.
Shout out to Poggle. You got a great name.
Ben Burr for creating that language and
Right.
sound and everything,
So
like
dang
so
impressive.
interesting. I love the way, like, of all of the times that Star Wars is sound where it's just like you can never not hear that in your head anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's freaking Seismic Charges and Poggle the Lesser for me
Ooh.
are very top of the list. Um, Trivia
Seismic
time!
Charge.
Sudden trivia time. What inspired the creation of the Geonosian species?
Bugs.
A. George Lucas watched Starship Troopers one day. B. George Lucas had a termite infestation in his home. C. Rick McCallum encouraged George to diversify the cast. Or D. George discovered an actual race of bug people in need of work and no Geonosian was harmed in the making of these films.
As much as I like D, I'm gonna say my boy Rick had some input.
I knew you'd go for it, and
Of
that's why I put
course.
it in, because it's wrong. Uh,
Wow.
it's actually legit, or at least according to what George says, and what George says is law, as we know.
Apparently.
Yeah, he had a termite infestation one day,
Wow.
like while writing, and he just found it
Those are
interesting.
neat.
Yeah, like I mean, as someone who arts, sometimes I get that where it's just like you get something real in your head, and you're like, that'd be cool, and you like run with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's cool. And the fact, I mean, they were originally supposed to be the Nemoidians in
Mm.
episode one. It was meant to be even more obvious that, hey, these droids that we're seeing for the first time are clearly based on these Trade Federation guys. I like it better that that didn't work out and we got Geonosians the way we got them.
Yeah,
Um,
because they fit. They fit in their environment so
yeah,
well.
and
They don't
it,
really fit on a spaceship.
Exactly. I was going to say they don't really fit outside of Geonosis, and so like I'm okay not seeing them in every battle in the
Mm.
Clone Wars and everything. It makes sense that they would stay home.
Yeah.
like like you don't see ants venturing out further than they need to for sustenance. Although if you come to their place of domicile, they will kill you.
Exactly. Like you should.
Right.
I'll eat
Um
you.
And so, yeah, so I think the way we got Geonosians is right and interesting. I think it was good to have them saved for episode 2.
Yeah,
So now, if you've ever seen Star Wars Rebels, you may be
I have.
familiar with the last Geonosian, Click Clack.
Click clack, so
Um,
cute.
and that might convince you to think that maybe they can be peaceful and maybe they can be reasoned with, and you would be wrong.
You would be wrong because you can't trust anybody, not even yourself. You're standing
Well,
behind you with a knife.
okay. But
Kill your double.
Click Clack had the benefit of being the last of their kind. Like play your cards right.
Yeah.
You knowing you are like your species' last hope changes the way you do everything.
Yeah,
Uh,
you go into desperation mode a little bit.
but generally, Geonosians are naturally on a hair trigger, so much so that if they don't stay busy, hence the civil wars that we talked about before, if they don't stay busy with work and if they're not forced onto a task, they will just start fighting amongst themselves.
Wow, it's like when you get a group of ADHD people in a room.
Right. If they don't have a job, they literally just are like, well, time to murder.
Time to eat each other.
And you don't want to be in the middle of that.
No, you don't.
For instance, Geonosians have 2 sets of mandibles that they use to create their distinct and beautiful language, but
Yes.
they don't mince words. So if they click their outer mandibles once, it means work harder. If they click their inner mandibles once, it means die.
Nice.
And so you could just imagine that on like an inspirational poster.
Like-
It's lovely. So yeah, they only have two terminologies: work or die.
Yeah.
So yeah, you don't want to be what they're working on or what they're killing. I would
Skate or
say,
die.
yeah, skate or die. And so yeah, so Geonosians are more than capable of handling unwanted visitors themselves. We see that in Attack of the Clones and such, and they are again very rarely ever alone. They often come in numbers, and if we've learned anything from the droids they make, that can make a difference.
Oh yes.
And
It's
so
not that the battle droids are necessarily smart. It's that there's a lot of them.
exactly. And so speaking a lot and stuff, there's actually not a segue, but next thing
Next thing.
is number 6. If you're counting counting along at home,
Ah.
ah,
Ah.
arena combat. Dun 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 dun. Probably the part of Geonosis that is most memorable and interesting is the Pentrachia Arena. It makes up half of their epic climax in Attack of the Clones, and it's just awesome. I remember as a kid, I used to fast forward the like Obi-Wan sleuthing parts, and I used to watch 2 things: one, Jango Fett;
Of
2,
course.
Geonosis.
Yes.
Everything. And the majority of that is the arena, and it's awesome. It's on Return of the Jedi levels of like multiple, like we're moving from one thing to the next. Like, oh, we're over the Sarlacc pit. Now we're on top of the sail barge. Now we're, it's just moving your set pieces
Yeah.
constantly to the next climactic thing, right?
And looking good while doing it.
Oh yeah, and I love it. And so there's a lot to love about the arena. And while we know of one of the more famous instances of the arena combat, apparently it was used quite often.
It seems like it got a good bit of use out of it.
I hope so, because that thing's huge. Like that, like living in a city with an arena that very rarely gets used, and the constant conversations with the city of just like, hey, we got to use this big expensive place. Yeah,
It's the James Brown
if you don't have a
arena.
reason, well, their solution would be to start holding executions of criminals, because that's one of the major uses of the Pentrachia Arena.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It is Georgia.
But they actually didn't have just the occasional bad bug. They also had willing participants who would try and prove themselves by taking on the beasts of the arena and such. And they'd even have people travel from various places. Like apparently their arena combat was very well renowned. So it's interesting. And it can even be flooded for water combat, apparently.
Wow. And water coming back.
Right?
Where are they getting all this water?
It's versatile. I don't know.
Is it the queen?
At one point, they're telling me there's not enough water. Now there's too much water. Now we have water to play with. I just don't know what's happening anymore, but I don't question Wikipedia. Did you know
They follow us on Twitter.
that it's crazy? It's crazy.
It's very weird.
The arena had no name for 13 years.
That doesn't surprise me
Uh,
because there's a lot
right.
of things that didn't have a name in Star Wars, and then someone
True.
was like, "Okay, blue guy.
True.
His name is Snufkin."
In this case, it was a 2015 character encyclopedia, apparently. But yeah, I didn't realize
Is that
that
our boy?
it didn't always have a name. Huh?
Is it Pablo? Did he name it?
No, I don't know. He doesn't write all the encyclopedias.
He writes a
He's
lot of
not the
them.
only Star Wars nerd. But yes,
I
he does
disagree.
probably. Yeah, I don't know, maybe. Um, and sort of a sub point to the last one is that not only could you die from just the straightforward arena combat, you could die while simply vacationing with your son, as did
My
Jango Fett.
son?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, when
you
battle
could do
erupted
that.
between the Republic and the Separatists, Jango got involved and ended
Mhm.
up losing his head, and it was a shame. And so, and in fact, in Legends, Jango was actually buried on Geonosis originally for a
Ah,
while before Boba Fett returned many years later to exhume him and move him to bury him with his daughter on Mandalore, Boba's daughter on
ah,
Mandalore.
nice.
Um, so
That's
yeah,
not canon anymore, but it's okay.
no, and leads me to wonder.
Where are his bones at?
Yeah, I mean, I I don't know because like Camino wasn't necessarily home, although yeah, they spent a lot of time there. So I
No.
don't imagine Boba taking him back there.
And I don't imagine that he'd be allowed back on Camino.
And I can't imagine he just slipped onto Mandalore.
No.
Um,
Do you think he just carries the bones around in his starship?
I mean, I like to think that cremation's like a normal thing in Star Wars. Like, I kind of hope that like he just
Ooh.
keeps him on the ship somewhere.
Wouldn't it be neat and also incredibly morbid if he grinds the ashes into a paint and he paints it on his armor?
I mean, you're gonna run out of daddy eventually, though.
I'm sorry, dude. I need to
um,
use this canary yellow.
the arena was also used for playtesting new weapons and
Wow.
droids, which I thought was actually kind of
Ooh.
interesting.
Ooh, I thought of a better one. What if he's melted down in the Beskar?
Yes, because my father is made out of solid Beskar.
I
Yes,
gotta steal, Daddy.
um, and so this actually solved a like not serious question I've always had of like when at some point when Dooku's just sick of the Jedi stuff and just like all right droids,
Yeah.
how like thousands of droids just show up, right? It's because it's just connected to the factory. Like
Yeah.
it's over a portion of the factory, and they literally have, I guess, just elevators for bringing up droids and equipment for testing. This time they just actually used it for death instead of testing. So there you go.
At any point, a factory could be converted to a death factory.
Oh,
Let's be
absolutely.
honest with ourselves.
Um, and a beautiful segue on our journey of death here, because number 5 is poor safety protocols.
Mm.
Much like the Empire that came after them, the Geonosians were just sloppy with it. I mean,
Well, they could fly.
we all saw the footage, right? They have that excuse. The Empire has no excuse for no guardrails, man.
Have they ever tried to
It's
fly?
literally the stupidest way to die in any Imperial situation. Um, yes, at least here it can make some sort of sense, but it's terrible when you have guests. Like, I mean, not everybody has wings, Poggle. Um, we all saw Attack of the Clones.
Yes.
We all saw what happened with Padme and Anakin. Okay, it
Yes.
was not pretty. And look, if they weren't main characters, they'd be dead.
Yeah,
They'd be dead.
they crossed the red tape.
Exactly. And it's just one of those things. It's bound. They literally go through a door, and it's like a 3-foot bridge. Who is that bridge for?
Mhm.
Who only has 3 feet of space to like journey into this factory? Is that the length of your tour? That's disappointing.
People who can fly.
Again, but not everybody. I mean, like, listen, okay. If we have to have protocols for doors have to be this wide and ramps have to be here and blah 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 to make everything accessible to everyone, then by golly, the Geonosians should do the same.
We should put oxygen tanks in the ocean.
I
The fish have had it too easy for too long. I want to go down there.
Oh gosh. I will say, like, one thing I love is like this is one of the few times we get to see like a factory in Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
Like we see all of these things in Star Wars, and we very rarely ever get to see where they come from.
Yeah, I mean, we've been in industrial settings, but like this is the first time we've actually seen a factory, like you said. a production floor.
Yeah, and so, and of course, it would make for an interesting setting. It's
Of
why
course.
after they finished the majority of the movie, they were just like, "Hey, we really need something else," and they shot this late. They literally like just bunch of blue screen, some guys in some blue tights, Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen.
Love it.
That's all they needed to make this happen because at some point they were just like, "Wouldn't it be cool?" And it was.
It really was. It's the coolest part of the movie.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
well,
one of them.
it's on there. So yeah, I really like. I'm a nerd of like I like to see where things come from. I don't want to just know. Oh, we've got thousands of shit. Like, okay, but where did they come from?
Yeah.
Right? Like, where are you making these things? Um, and so I really like an opportunity to see where these things come from. I mean, we talk about how many battle droids the Trade Federation has. This is where they come from.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, especially since, and that was the big point, is like we've got to show scale
Mm.
because we're about to start a war. We have to show that both sides can handle it.
Begun the Clone War
And
has.
so on one hand, we have Obi-Wan touring Camino, which first of all, okay, completely different
So
experience.
different.
Touring Camino and getting numbers, right? Yeah, we've got these hundreds of thousands and a million more well on the way, right? And then you go over to the other side and you see how many droids are like. The Clone Wars is gonna be big.
Yeah.
And at the time in 2002, we just had no idea how big.
Yeah. And I understand why we couldn't see the full scale of the Clone Wars until later.
I don't.
Well,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
you know.
Yeah, no, and I wouldn't have wanted it to be on screen.
Yeah.
What we got is great, and what's great about what we got is there's still so much more. Like
Yeah.
we only focused on essentially 3 Jedi and a few clones. We can still see so many more new things about the Clone Wars today,
Yeah.
right? Like
Insane.
17. No, golly, almost 20 years later, we
Freaking A,
yeah,
man.
right. We can still see so many more new things to the Clone Wars, and I think that's
Yeah.
great. And speaking of the Clone Wars,
Yeah.
number 4 leans heavily on the Clone Wars animated series, and that would be number 4, not dying.
Yes, I am
It,
so glad that you brought this up.
the one of the greatest ways to die on Geonosis is to not die. What's worse
Yes.
than death? Being alive and under the control of a Geonosian queen, courtesy of
Dude.
brain worms.
This is like I think this was the concept of Death Troopers to the 10th degree.
I would love that so much, and
so good.
I think you've mentioned that before, and I really do like that idea of just
Yeah.
like, oh,
We could do Death Troopers
we can do something with that,
again.
right? And so, and not even death is an escape for this because
Yeah.
countless dead Geonosians remain in service to the Queen thanks to these worms.
It's one of the coolest arcs in the Clone Wars.
It's awesome. And yeah, I love the Geonosian episodes of Clone Wars, the second battle of Geonosis and everything, some of the biggest scale we've seen at that point in the show and everything. And to follow all that action immediately up with this sort of scary thriller kind
Yeah.
of episode, I thought it was great.
It was like The Thing mixed with the Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah,
So
that's
cool.
a good way to put it. And so, speaking of these episodes, time to test your knowledge on something you will totally be judged for
Oh,
later.
golly.
No, I mean, well, the internet can.
I get judged for many things.
When did the Second Battle of Geonosis episodes of the Clone Wars originally air? Now, I'm counting all 5 together, just because, not multiple dates, but A, January of 2010, B, December of 2008, C, November 2009, or D, every day in my heart.
Well, D is obvious. Because
Obviously.
I think about those quite a bit. I mean, 2009 sounds like the most accurate answer.
My face betrayed me. Yes.
Yes, it did.
You'd be right. November 2009.
Yeah.
2009.
Because this is like the
third
season?
second season, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, like almost 12 years ago.
Jesus.
It's insane.
Louises.
The Clone Wars is old, guys. We're old.
We are so
old. It's crazy. Yeah, I love these episodes. Like I said, I love the action and and I love that they scale it back because that's what the Clone Wars show does really a lot. Is it scales it back? It's like they have these big battles that remind you this is a galactic war, but the majority of it is all right. But here's who we're hanging out with, right?
Mhm.
And I think those episodes, and plus, really great moment to introduce and continue with Barasafi and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Love
loved it.
bears.
Um, and so yeah, with such an infestation, though, it'd be natural to handle things the way Ellen Ripley does and just nuke everything.
Nuke the planet from orbit.
And
You got
that
to.
would be the way the Empire handled it. Because number 3, Imperial Sterilization.
Oh,
Hey,
yikers.
nuke isn't the right word because really what it was is about 10 years before A New Hope, after several security issues and just racism,
Mhm.
Tarkin had the Death Star moved mid-construction, and to tie up any loose ends, he had poison gas released across the planet.
Jeez.
And since Geonosians are essentially the only thing inhabiting the planet, I mean, we never really, other than the worms, which I kind of count as Geonosians,
Agreed.
we don't really ever see anything else. We don't see like womp rats or everything. But I'd assume everything is dead.
Yeah. That would
um,
be a fair assumption to make.
yeah, and so did you know that Geonosis did actually appear a few times in Legends after like the prequel era?
Did it now?
And so like this was obviously a way to be like, hey, we don't really see much of Geonosians after this. What are we going to do to explain that? Well, let's just have the Empire kill them because, they're space Nazis. We need another reason to hate them.
Yeah. They kill the drones.
In Legends, they didn't care. And it was actually in a video game, Rogue Squadron 3, back in 2003.
Ah.
Wedge Antilles visits the planet. Geonosians are still there. And he, in fact, ends up trading his X-Wing for a Jedi starfighter to save the day in that game. And so Geonosis not only shows up, but it's still, like, thriving. In fact, in Legends, there is no point where Geonosis just dies and goes away.
Wow.
It remains a planet.
As it should.
I don't know what they're doing at that point, but yeah, they're still around.
Hanging out, being alive.
Yeah, and so now, we did mention before, luckily, that Click Clack became the last Geonosian, and it's because of this Imperial sterilization. We meet him when the Phoenix Squadron cell ends up exploring Geonosis years later, and that's where we discover what the Empire had done, and that they had a 99.99% success rate. Because of the estimated 100 billion dead in the sterilization, one lone Geonosian survived, along with
eggs.
Well, one egg.
Egg.
A queen egg,
yes.
In fact. And so this would be the Alien 3 of our Geonosis adventure.
Love it. Love it so much.
Out of, this sort of primal and instinctual self-preservation, the last egg to escape became a queen egg, I guess. Or that's at least how it works in Xeno mythos.
And that's how it works in real life in some cases.
Yeah, if your queen dies, like, all right, you're the queen. We voted.
Yep.
It's you. So I guess it's something maybe similar. And in this case, that would be another reason to die. Because these queens be crazy.
They be hecka crazy. They are voiced very well.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, D. Bradley Baker.
Thanks, man.
You suck. Gizmo caca. It's not far off from
it's
Strike
really not.
and Gremlins.
It's still very funny.
Yeah, number 2, we're getting up there.
Yes,
number
we
2
are.
is Crazy Queens. Yes. So if you read up in the comics, particularly the 2015 Darth Vader comics, which just do yourself a favor and do it because it's amazing.
Please do.
But you'd also know, well, maybe you didn't, because I actually didn't put 2 and 2 together originally. But the queen that Darth Vader eventually encounters on Geonosis was the queen that hatched from the egg that Click Clack saved.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So if you're ever reading that comic and you're like, what? Where did? How? Well, Star Wars Rebels. Watch it.
Yeah.
You dingus. So
You should watch it just in general.
Exactly.
Come on, man.
Exactly. Watch
It's
it for
good.
the Geonosians and for the Feelies.
Watch it for crying at Darth Maul.
And yeah, so the egg did indeed hatch and grow into quite the crazy queen in just 2 years, actually. Um, that's about the amount of time that transpired between one and the other of egg to queen. And I guess Click Clack fled. I would too if I was hanging out with Queen Karina.
It'd be like that.
That is her actual name, by the way.
Love it.
And what's a shame is that one of the side effects of the toxic gas, although Click Clack and the Queen both survived, she was born and existed sterile.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of sucky.
That's sad.
And like I said, I guess Click Clack escaped, and in her loneliness and her desire to fulfill her motherly duties, she affixed herself a robo womb.
Ew.
A room.
A Roomba.
A Roomba, if you will. Think Alien Resurrection meets Terminator.
Gross.
It's crazy. Really, it's more like she attached herself. I don't think like, insert slot A into slot B. Like, I think she just sat on top of a Droid 3D printer and booms the dynamite. You got babies. Because yeah, she just basically found this thing that pumped out droids, and yeah, she was just so crazy. She was like, "These are my children," and for whatever reason, they were also sort of like zombie-ish. They weren't like your typical clankers. They were like
they were like Amanda
what
from Alien 3, Ripley's weird alien daughter.
Alien? There's no daughter in Alien 3. What?
Wait, no. Uh, the one that gets sucked through the hole.
Oh no, that's just Ripley's child, not Amanda. Although that's her daughter's name. Yeah, the newborn. I mean, sort of, yeah, in the sense that it's just like they aren't droids, but they're not Geonosians, but they're somehow both
not humans, not xenomorphs.
Yeah, they definitely don't act like droids, although they are droids, and I think it's just a way to be like, these are my children. I have control of them somehow.
Somewhat.
I am a physical, control tower. Or it's weird. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but dang if it's not cool. Okay, like that's the point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she just had a serious case of PTSD and hate towards non-Geonosians. So obviously, encountering her in the catacombs would not be a good idea. It almost wasn't a good idea for Darth Vader, who basically showed up to steal her robo womb.
Aww.
Because he needed droids. The good thing is
I'm the mummy now.
She survived. Right. She did survive.
Good.
So as crazy and resourceful as she is, I am sure she found another robo womb. I choose to believe, at least. And so as of right now, she is the last remaining Geonosian. She's still out there. Geonosians have a chance, maybe?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't doubt science, but maybe.
Happen.
Yeah, who knows? So yeah, it's pretty crazy. So yeah, so that's all but our number one. I mean, how do you feel about Geonosis now? You liked it in the beginning. Do you still like it? All of these ways to die. Are you still interested?
I mean, I'll fly over it. We'll hijack the Razor Crest. Wait, nope, never mind. Razor Crest is gone.
Too soon. I just rewatched that recently.
I know, it was great.
Oh my gosh.
There's something very satisfying about watching that ship blow up, and I can't. I don't know why.
You're a devil.
You knew this.
Yes, she witch. I just like to think that like Sean Connery talking about a sea witch still. Yeah, she witch. What are you saying?
Nobody can understand.
I'm Spaniard. Stupidest casting decision ever.
So
Other than making him Russian in that one movie.
Red October.
Yeah, it's like, why can't you, like, I know we don't know where he hails from, but like...
Nobody knows what a Scottish accent is.
Well, I mean, like, there's Scottish and then there's Sean Connery, to be fair.
That is true.
My gosh. So, any guesses for what number one is? As we wrap up here. And feel free at home to, if you were playing along, check off your bingo cards. If we missed
Play along
anything,
at home.
you can let us know. I am sure I did not cover everything, and hopefully you know more about Geonosis, and hopefully you properly fear it. I feel all education is best used in fear. So yeah.
Well, you could be walking along the road, and you get a rock caught in your shoe, and then it gets infected from a cut, and then you could die of gangrene.
Yes, a life in the day of anxiety. A day in
Yeah,
the life of anxiety.
I have
Words.
that.
Number one,
What's
yes.
number 1?
Number one, and I put some serious thought into this one.
Yes.
Geonosis, along with every planet we have talked about, but Geonosis in particular has a lot of ways to die, and a lot of them creative and interesting. But I just couldn't avoid coming back to the same number one every time. And if I do it about 3 times, I feel like it's right. And so our number one is Skywalker. Look,
That has been the number 1 on 2 of these
I
dang
think more
episodes.
than that, but
I think almost.
I don't plan it this way, okay? But of all the ways to die, generally most death in Star Wars involve a Skywalker
Mm-hmm.
somewhere. They might just be at the bar. They might be the one pulling the trigger, but you can almost certainly count on a Skywalker being the cause of your death if you lived in Star Wars. One of them.
One of them at least.
Um,
if it's not the first generation, it's the later
right.
generations.
Well, in this one in particular, I have to give it to Anakin. As far as the who and the what got the most Geonosian kills, I have to think Anakin is definitely up there with Imperial Sterilization. And hear me out, okay? I think that we will all come to the understanding that a Skywalker is behind the deaths of the most Geonosians, all right? So,
yeah.
Anakin Skywalker, who ruthlessly slaughtered several Geonosian
Not
drone
just
workers,
the men and the women and the children.
all of them, after illegally entering the factory premises, I might add.
And kissing his girlfriend.
Right. He broke in, they defended themselves, and he murders them.
Exactly.
All right? And then he just like goes on a joyride throughout the factory, and I mean their work is their livelihood. We know this. Who knows how many civil wars he created by like halting productions. All right?
He damaged company property.
After that, after being apprehended for his crimes, he proceeded to steal one of their endangered arena species and take it for a joyride. And it had to be like the beast was clearly out of his element, and sadly was a casualty of war when things broke out between religious zealots and corporate bigwigs, and the poor creature's dead because of it.
That poor thing. It's like SeaWorld.
Have you seen another reek?
I haven't.
No, exactly. That might have been the last one.
Do you think they smelled bad?
I do think they smelled bad, but they didn't deserve to die for it. Darn you, Anakin Skywalker.
Darn
then, in this very battle, not only did he slay many a Geonosian, but it was his direction that led to troops firing missiles at fleeting ships' fuel tanks, causing the utmost destruction. And I don't know, I could be wrong, but I believe those ships were full of fleeing Geonosian mothers and children.
Mm.
I just have to believe that they were just fearful of this blonde, side ponytailed boy who was coming for their lives.
You and your wig.
He enjoyed slaying them so much that when it came to the second War of Geonosis, he not only led a team, but he also proudly counted his kills.
Mm.
He made a game of it.
Disgusting.
It was disgusting. And finally, though Moff Tarkin was the one behind the gassing of Geonosis,
yes,
who was this old pink slipper wearing dictator's best friend and ally? None other than Darth Vader, aka Anakin Skywalker, aka Slayer of Geonosians, aka the number one killer on our list today. He kills a lot of things.
He do be killing.
I mean, we always talk about the Jedi, boo-hoo, the Jedi, but what about the Geonosians?
What about the droid attack on the
Where's
Wookiees?
the justice for the Geonosians, guys?
Justice for Geo.
So, it had to be Anakin. Love my boy, but he is a murderer.
That's like half of my problematic faves, my dude.
So let us know if you could think of a better number one, or if you can dare defend the actions of a Skywalker. And let us know if you can think of any other cool, interesting facts about Geonosis or ways to die. But I think you can definitely check this off your vacation wish list. I think you are better off visiting Naboo, at least until we do an episode about that. I'm sure I can find 10 ways to die
Oh,
there.
oh boy,
Um,
you want to talk about water?
right? So, although a version of 10 Ways to Die would have happened. You have our patron, our new
Our
patron,
newest patron.
Graeme, to thank for
Yeah.
Geonosis. And so thanks, Graeme, and
Thanks,
thanks to
Graham.
all of our patrons who do what they do in supporting us. We don't have fancy trinkets and a lot of cool stuff, but if you want in on supporting this because you like us, there are links in the description for that and ways to join and support the show.
You got goofs
Um,
and gaffs and
you can do
giggles.
one-time support by buying some coffee from our friends at Expedition Roasters, or you can do committed support through Anchor or Patreon. So, thank you to you guys, and look forward to doing another one of these after the new year because we have the rest of the year planned. It's exciting. As far as Star Wars goes, we'll be getting back to our We Love series. It has been a long time coming. We will be talking about the sequel trilogy. I mean, movie by movie, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker. We'll be talking about it all here throughout the end of the year, along with
Yeah.
other cool things over on
So many
Nerdyverse.
things. There's so many things, guys.
Yeah, so weekly we have either an episode of Nerdyverse or an episode of Nerd Herder. And we also have our streams. So make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel where we stream different things every week. If you tuned into our latest one, we played one of my favorite video games and celebrated its 19th anniversary.
It was
And
either
so,
great or terrible. We'll find out.
right, we haven't done it yet.
Literally in an
Um,
hour.
so, but yeah, if you want to keep up with us, be sure to check the links below and follow us on all of our socials. If you want to interact with us individually and specifically, you can do that. I'm at Duke Trooper 117 on Twitter.
Yep. And I am at Bupenheim MEW.
Yeah, and
Spelled like it
so
sounds.
find us there. We are slowly trying to make our podcast page more podcasty and keep our Star Wars hot takes
Personal
on
nonsense. Calling
ours.
people daddy.
I promise to only criticize Admiral Akbar on my personal account. So if you want to defend his fishy honor, you can find me on Twitter and do so.
I'm
But
not going to stop posting my Vampire's Kiss hot takes
right.
on the Nerd Herder Twitter, so you're just going to have to get used to that.
There you go. So, yeah, that's an episode 10 Ways to Die on Geonosis. Hopefully, you learned something. If not, you aren't getting your money back. We will be back later with more, and we thank you for tuning in. See you next time.
Bye.